Right, this is William Darby from York Racecourse. It's 11 o'clock on Thursday the 6th of August. It's a bit of a weird experience and an unprecedented year of new experiences to be talking to an iPad in an empty room, just giving a monologue, but I hope maybe some people are out there. We'll just wait a few minutes before this racing welfare community coffee morning. I hope you got your coffees. We'll get going in a minute or so, and I hope you're all well. Behind me is the Naysmar. You can see the winning post maybe if I go like this. It's a pretty cloudy day on the Naysmar, pretty dry. We had a bit of rain yesterday. We are now just under 2 weeks away from our flagship meeting, the Welcome to Yorkshire Ebor Festival. So what I've been asked by Racing Welfare to do is give a bit of a background and a personal history of how I came to be at York and my racing background, which I'll do in a few moments. Then talk a little bit about York Racecourse and the journey that we've been on as a racecourse over the last decade or so. Then talk a little bit about the pandemic, how 2020 has affected us, and a little bit looking forward to the Welcome to Yorkshire Ebor Festival in a couple of weeks' time, as I say, our flagship meeting. Delighted to do this for Racing Welfare, a fantastic charity. We're incredibly proud to be partners with Racing Welfare. Work very closely with Dawn, Gemma and the team, especially with the Yorkshire connection of Malton Gate under Sarah Monkman. That I'm very excited about the prospect of Jessica Bethel House in Midland. Worked closely with Sarah Fanning, as she is now, who used to be a colleague working for the racecourse. She used to work for Racing Welfare, and Jessica Leighton, who currently works for Racing Welfare, is one of our proteges who we're very proud of Jessica and the role that she's now doing for Racing Welfare. In this very room, we had the Racing Welfare Boxing Night supported by William Hill. We've had coffee mornings here. We have the wonderful Christmas dinner, a lunch here, and we've had beneficiaries here. And we've done these coffee mornings in real life in the past and delighted to do so. But as I say, Racing Welfare asked me to talk a little bit about my racing background and story. So it started at a very young age. We lived in the middle of nowhere in rural West Sussex, not too far from Goodwood, Fontwell, and with Brighton and Plumpton in East Sussex. And without much to do in the middle of nowhere, myself and my brother very much went down a horsey pony route. My first pony came from an RDA centre, so I nagged at my parents, who weren't very horsey, to let me have a pony. So I had this sort of Cinderella existence for the first few years, where this flea-bitten grey pony, 13-hand pony called Crispin, was during the term time, he was a beautiful RDA pony, looked after the kids there. And then in the school holidays, we requisitioned him and went, did all sorts of pony activities, show jumping, cross country, eventing, dressage, which we weren't so keen on, hunting, etc. And this pony sort of came alive from being a docile poppet with the RDA kids, then came alive during the holidays, and that really got me going. We then, as we grew, my brother and I, our ponies grew. We're very proud that one of our horses that we took from a 4-year-old went eventing, and we took him all the way from novice to advanced eventing, did Bramham, Windsor 3-a-day event, and went all the way from, as I say, novice to advanced eventing. So that's sort of a bit of the horsey story. Racing has always been a part of in my interest growing up. I used to, as I say, I used to bunk off school and go to Plumpton. I could bicycle from my school to Plumpton. Fontwell was never far away on the ponies. We once had a trek past Goodwood Racecourse. Won't tell Ed Arkle or Seamus, but there was a time when we got on the course at the 6 furlong start, the Stewards Cup start, and we galloped on our ponies from there to the 4 furlong, quickly turned around before anyone saw us and galloped the 2 furlongs back again. I then, aged about 12 or 13, was fixated at that age by becoming a jockey, and went to work for a trainer called Colin Whedon, who trained at Robbins Farm, where George Baker now is. It's had a few improvements, courtesy of Sheikh Farhad and others, since I was there. It was a national hunt 30 runner yard in those days. Colin Whedon made his fortune from second-hand car salesman, and was one of those really important people in my early formative years, and I learned a huge amount every spare weekend of school holidays working for Colin. He, as I say, he was a second-hand car salesman, so we'd ride out 4 or 5 lots in the morning, and then in the afternoon, to earn a bit of pin money, he'd get us going to South London, East London, to pick up used cars that he'd bought at auction. And one of Colin's things he hated doing was putting any petrol in the car. So the car petrol gauge would be on 0, and Colin would never give us a fiver to put any petrol in the car. So he'd say, "No, you get to London and back in that, you'll be fine." And so we'd be driving these not salubrious second-hand cars, and of course run out of petrol on the A3, and have to call in those days on a 10p phone box to come and get rescued many a time. Colin's best horse was a horse called Miracle Man, won at the Cheltenham Festival, the 3-mile hurdle. His stable jockey was Peter Hobbs. So me, as a young aspiring amateur jockey, used to get tips off Peter, and looked up to him very much. He's now a course inspector, of course, brother of Philip, and has become a great friend, and never really misses the Nebor Festival. So had great times there with Colin. As I went through my teenage years, my prospect of becoming a jockey sort of diminished as I grew, and the weight went up. I then went off to university. I went to Imperial College Y, which in fact has been bizarrely a sort of lots of racing people have been to Y, part of London University, but in the Kent, it's sort of the outskirts of Canterbury. Y Racecourse, of course. Bob Davis went there, obviously the Supremo at Ludlow for many years, won the Grand National. Sally Igwardon, neighbouring course at Beverley, went there. Keith Otterson, Clark the course at Newbury, went there and was a couple of years ahead of me. So I had a great time at Kent. All through in those days you got student grants, and because it was part of London University, got a really generous student grant. But I earned pin money all through university, riding for Tom Kemp, who is a trainer in Kent. He was the son of a missionary, but he was one of those real characters as a trainer, very old-fashioned type of trainer, if you know what I mean. So and would talk for hours to me and a friend from university who went to ride out for him about handicapping and how the industry worked from a training at a low level point of view worked, and would be really generous with his time, but then absolutely F and Jeff when you were riding out and schooling and did something wrong. And I learnt a few extra words under Tom. Tom's gallops was literally up the side of the M20 in Kent, and one of those big sort of 18-wheeler container lorries used to whistle by literally within about 10 foot of you as you were working a horse up what felt like up the hard shoulder, but the gallop was just the other side of the motorway fence. So that was an experience, and he learned to sit tight. Tom then lucked out because the Channel Tunnel high-speed rail link went straight through his yard, so he got compulsory purchased, and I think moved up and bought a big farm in the Borders. So, but a really good guy, and look back very fondly on my time at Y and with Tom. Managed somehow by some complete fluke to get a first-class degree in agricultural economics. Realised I wasn't going to make it as a jockey. So took a different path in life and went to Cambridge and were trained as an accountant. Ran away from racing to be an accountant, if you like. But had a really good time there. At that time, the firm I worked for did a lot of the studs and stables in Newmarket. So I did the accounts for the National Stud, for Stanley House Stables when Mr. Gosden was there, Cheveley Park, Dalham Hall, Shadwell. So got a real insight into the internal workings of a racing business, racing yards, racing operations, which I really liked, found fascinating. Rode out a couple of times for Bob Champion when I was there. He probably doesn't remember, but he was a sort of hero of ours because Aldeniti, the owners of Aldeniti, were our next door neighbours growing up, the Embericoses. So 1981 was a huge year, obviously, for them. When we were growing up. So yeah, went to Cambridge, trained as a chartered accountant, qualified with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then went down that track for a few years after qualifying, and was in, believe it or not, I went to Zagreb on assignment after the war there, and it was part of the reconstruction program project. And a friend of mine who knew I liked racing said, "Oh, have you seen this advert for head of accounts at Ascot Racecourse?" So, having no sort of involvement with racing since riding out, I went to the interview with had an interview with Piers Bengoff, who was the senior trustee at the time, and amazingly got the job as head of accounts at Ascot in the sort of mid 90s. Had a fantastic time there, was eventually promoted to their commercial director. It was at a time before the redevelopment when Ascot was going through that transformation at the time under Douglas Erskine Crum, sort of inspirational chief executive who was leading at the time, now leading the Juddmonte operation. A really good boss in John Woodrow, who's finance director, sort of was my mentor and a very important person to me. And at that time at Ascot, it was a wonderful occasion. My role on a race day at Ascot was to look after all the entrances, the turnstiles, and all where people were paying to come into the course. So it was a great job because it was really busy during the morning and lunchtime. But by about the third race, I was free of my sort of day job responsibilities. So I got to see lots of racing. You know, it was a time of Monsieur, Galileo, Fantastic Light, some wonderful races during that period, and really enjoyed it. It was pre-redevelopment. It was when the Ascot Racecourse went for 4 days of Royal Ascot to the Heath Day. Part of my job was to do the business plan around the moving to the 5 days of Royal Ascot, which of course has been a huge success. I remember trying to persuade people that Douglas and I sort of persuading people that people would come to Royal Ascot on a Saturday, and now you look back and you get 80,000 people, the busiest day on Royal Ascot Saturday. The Royal Ascot Racing Club was set up during my time there. That was I was part of the team that put that together and working with all the team there. So really exciting times, and I really enjoyed my time at Ascot. I was incredibly lucky that they sent me to Harvard Business School for a program there, which was just a phenomenal experience. Not only did I get to learn some fantastic things sort of academically, but I also got to go, Suffolk Downs was open then. I went to Breeders' Cup 2000 in Churchill when Giants Causeway, I don't even remember, just got beaten by Tisnau in the classic. So an amazing, 70,000 people at Churchill Downs. That was a brilliant race day, which I managed to combine when I was in North America with them. So really happy at Ascot, living down by the end of the Straight Mile, effectively there in a racecourse property. And then 2003, John Smith, who'd been the long-term chief executive and clerk of the course at York, was retiring. And there was the opportunity to interview to come to York. I was quite young for the post there. I seem to have gone from being young to the post to old in the post very quickly, but as time has flown. And I had an interview with Lord Halifax, who of course owned Shirley Heights to win the Derby in 1979. So quite a sort of daunting interview process and prospect. surrounded by Stubbses and wonderful artwork at his house. Anyway, so he looked kindly upon this young fella, young accountant from Ascot, and I got the job and arrived at York, took over in 2003. A slightly unusual role at York as chief executive and clerk of the course, which I think is unique to any of the big courses. It kind of works for York. We're a trust. Everything we do is about the racing action. Everything we make is about investing back in the sport. So we invest in the facilities, the experience, the prize money, and by having the same person at the head of the executive operation who is also responsible for the racing side and the business side, kind of works for our course. It means that we're aligned in what we're trying to do as a racecourse. I'm very well supported on both sides of the operation by the team here. Anthea Morshead is our racing manager and race day clerk of the course, daughter of Peter Bowman, of course, and was assistant trainer when Jadami won the Gold Cup to her father. I think she's the only female rider to have beaten professionals over the age-tree fences. I think I'm right in saying won the Topham Chase on JJ Henry. So Anthea heads up the racing side with me, and then on the business side we've got James Brennan and Chris Ward, head of finance, James, head of marketing and sponsorship. A really good team at the racecourse and all sorts of operations. So they all make my job very easy, and they do all the hard work. And a York Race Committee that I report into, a non-executive board, so incredibly talented, skilled, and give all of their time and efforts for free to the racecourse, because they love racing at York. So headed up by Lord Teddy Grimthorpe, who's our chairman at the moment, Nicholas Wrigley, Bridget Guerin, William Bethel, Chris Denny, and Nick Chain, all on our committee, and give a huge amount of time to make York really what it is. So incredibly grateful to work for a very supportive board, a very informed board, and a very good board. So York, I arrived, as I said, 2003. This stand that we're in at the moment, the £25 million Ebor stand, was under construction. Since then, we tried to add to the facilities. The North Bend you can see behind me was built ahead of Royal Ascot York in 2004, the meeting in 2003. So we completed the circle from a previously horseshoe-shaped racecourse to a circular racecourse in 2004. We then added to the facilities. We did a big project on the track in 2008 and 9, a big drainage irrigation track process, and the service road you can see behind me was built. We then updated the Melrose stand, the red brick stand by the parade ring for a better owners facilities and racegoer facilities in there. And then did a huge redevelopment of the northern end of the site. You may have been and seen the pre-parade ring, the weighing room, the Frankel statue, the entrance, the Sir Henry Cecil gates, and was part of a sort of £14 million development we did in 2015-16, which really transformed all those flows and facilities in the northern half of the racecourse. We were very pleased to get those done. One of the things was to restore the 1752 John Carr stand, the oldest grandstand on a racecourse anywhere in the world. We think a sporting venue anywhere in the world. We put a big canopy over it. It's a grade 2 star listed building with English heritage. So that was a sort of centerpiece of that development, which we were pleased to do. And then in the center of the course, again over my shoulder, you can see the clock tower enclosure, which we did a £5 million upgrade of that sort of picnic facilities in a couple of years ago, which we were pleased to do. Part of the ethos, as I say, of York is to reinvest in the facilities, both the facilities, the race programme and the experience, as I said. We've had lots of events during the period here. It's been a busy period with Royal Ascot at York in 2005, which was an amazing experience. As I say, I left Ascot Racecourse a couple of years beforehand. Then there was a bidding process, because when I was at Ascot, the intention was to race and hold the Royal Meeting through the redevelopment. But then after I'd left, the decision was made to sort of shut down the operation for a year and move the Royal Meeting. So we tendered to host that meeting. We were pleased to be successful. I talked about the infrastructure we put in terms of the Northern Bend. An amazing 5 days, really. Look back hugely fondly on that. A joint effort between the Ascot team, who sort of decamped up north, and the York team here, who put a huge amount of effort in to make it work. I think it was a hugely successful. People talk about it very fondly in this part of the world, and I know down south as well. Westerner won the Gold Cup. I don't know if you remember. Ifraj sort of stormed up the straight on a blistering hot Saturday of that year. Some great racing action. Started the week really slightly dodgy weather-wise, but got better as the week went on, and really pleased to be part of that. Then the following year, bizarrely, Doncaster Racecourse were redeveloping. So the St Leger came here. We held a 2-day meeting, condensed their brilliant races into 2 days. Really enjoyed that meeting. It was a sort of a slightly different feel and a different arrangement to Royal Ascot at York, and we really enjoyed it. It was a real celebration of Yorkshire racing, with the oldest classic held here for the first time since 1945. And it was won by 60s icon Frankie Dettori, winning favourite, Jeremy Nacida, Paul Roy. Blue skies, blistering. My memory of 2006 was just one of those beautiful autumnal blue sky days. Frankie winning the winning favourite, Jeremy Nacida, who's been such a supporter of York and ourselves over the years, a great person and was a great trainer previously, obviously, and look back very fondly on that day. 2009, we had to see the stars here with Master Craftsman. What a Juddmonte International that was. What a horse he was. Would have loved to have seen him in his 4-year-old career. Really great day, really enjoyed that. And then, of course, 2012 with Frankel. Just an amazing atmosphere. We put 50% on the gate that day. I think 30,000 people packed into the Knavesmire. Car parks were full to come and see that amazing horse. Sir Henry Cecil was here for his what turned out to be his last visit to the Knavesmire. Derek Thompson did that amazingly emotional interview with him afterwards. Prince Khaled was here. Just yeah, an amazing time to be part of. It was one of those days where Chairman of the Racecourse, Lord Grimthorpe, and I sort of said this can go one of two ways. It could either be an absolute disaster or a triumph, and I'm glad to say it was the latter. 2014, we had the Tour de France outside here, starting the start of the Tour de France. Day 2 of the Tour de France was here, 30,000 people packed in. We've had the Olympic torch here in 2012. Harvey Smith carried the Olympic torch down the wrong way down the straight. Again, 30,000 people packed in to see the Olympic torch. Quite an amazing event that we never expect. And Harvey Smith showed his real horseman skills, because he bought a show jumper, but he took one look at the torch and thought, I'm not going near that. But Harvey sort of settled it down and did an amazing job and it's really warm to the occasion. I think he was a bit grumpy about why he'd been asked by York Racecourse to come and carry the Olympic torch, but you know, he grew in stature when he saw 30,000 people packed in here, and obviously with his Olympic history, it's absolutely fitting. Another thing in 2014 we were really proud of was the Juddmonte International was ranked the highest rated race in the world, obviously over the 3 years with Frankel's 2012 renewal and then the subsequent 2. That was an amazing achievement in us. The Juddmonte International has been in the top 10 rated races in the world for the last decade. Again, something we're incredibly proud of and appreciative of the support from Juddmonte. So that's been a sort of whistle-stop tour of where we've got to, really. It hasn't all been plain sailing. I don't want to give that impression. We had 4 days after the smoking ban came in 2007, we had a fire in this stand in a back of house area. Someone was obviously having a crafty cigarette. We had events on that day. Disposed of their cigarette poorly and did about £2.5 million worth of damage. That was not a happy day. We've had the floods of 2008, which was a real sickener, not least because we had planned out the drainage project, and literally the drainage project was due to start after the Ebor 2008, but unfortunately we had record rainfall that August. We had a much worse rainfall overnight before the start of the festival, and as people may remember, unfortunately we had a last minute abandonment, not our finest hour. It was very painful both for the operation to pull the plug on our festival meeting at such short notice, but it was really without our control, and the forecast was very different to what we got, but that's life, and you learn from it and you move on. So we've had fire, flood, we have had pestilence. We had on a race day once, we had a wild bee swarm fly across the course and take up residence just by the winners' enclosure on a race day. That was an amazing day, and we put a bounty out to all the sort of pest controllers in the area. So first one here gets a contract. And this bee man came with a white suit on and just a cardboard box and a spray of water, and he put his gloved hand into the swarm, picked out the queen bee, put her in the cardboard box. All the bees obediently went in the cardboard box, and he walked down, and we carried on racing. So that's a whistle-stop tour. I need to have a look at some of these questions, which might be easier said than done, but I hope that's been all right. I've whittled on for long enough. Let's see if I can find some questions. Right. Fran. Hello, Fran. I know Fran. Can someone shine any light on you, William? You are silhouette. I'm sorry about that, Fran. It's bright outside. I haven't got anyone with me, Fran, so you'll just have to deal with the silhouette. It is me. Right. Trying to find some questions on my iPad. What has been your best day at York Racecourse? Thank you. That's through Racing Welfare. Well, best day, that's difficult to say. As I say, there have been so many highlights. The Frankel Day probably is the most memorable and something that will live with everyone, I think, that was there. A day I'm particularly proud of was in fact Skybet Ebor Day last year. Mustajeer won the £1 million Skybet Ebor. That race is one of it's probably our most famous race. Started in 1843, a hugely important flat handicap. It was already the richest flat handicap in Britain before the boost in prize money. But we'd really wanted to create a very special next chapter of that race, and have worked very hard for a long time with other people to promote the stayers category, to promote that as a race. That we all know what the Melbourne Cup does in the Southern Hemisphere, the Grand National does over jumps. We wanted that sort of flat handicap experience to be boosted, and work very hard with our partners Skybet to take the prize fund to £1 million. Mustajeer, we'd gone to Jer Lyons' yard the week before with the Skybet team to see Jer. Had a really good walk round with Ollie Bell, was with me doing interviews, and seen Mr. J, and he looked fantastic, and of course won the race, the first £1 million flat handicap in Europe. So that was a really proud day, really pleased to get that way. I hope that gives some kind of answer. Right, it's difficult to see these questions. Tom Kemp trained the diplomat. He did. Well done. Good knowledge, David Ward. Yeah. Thank you, Eileen. The Naysmar looks good. Yeah, so the Naysmar is a sort of 200-acre site. We've been racing here since 1731. It was a very marshy site. Naysmar obviously means commoner's bog. Dick Turpin was hung. It wasn't on a race day. In fact, we've tracked back the records compared to the date of the hanging. It wasn't on a race that day. I thought it was originally, but I was put right on that. And so the Naysmar, yeah, an amazing open space, owned by the City of York Council and open to the public. For behind closed doors racing, we have to put up 3 miles of fencing, not to stop people going on to the Naysmar, but to keep them back from the racing surface. So that's quite an operation. And then I have Adrian Kay heading up the grounds team here, who does an amazing job with the turf. It wouldn't be the easiest subsoil to manage, but Adrian has done an amazing job over the last decade or so, improving the soil, improving the drainage, improving the capability of us to cope with either a dry period or a wet period. And really one of our number one assets is our racing surface, which we invest a huge amount of time and effort and love into. So I'm trying to find some questions. So, Belinda Keithley's on. The Macmillan Day. That's an amazing day we have in June that people will know. Maybe they know it as Timeform Charity Day. Started in 1971 by Phil Bull. First year was at Doncaster. And then the next year it moved to York. Would you believe it? It's raised a huge amount for Macmillan over the years. And something we're very proud of. It raised £600,000 last year. I think the total is something up to £40 million raised over the period. Sorry, to £8 million raised over the period. Really proud of that relationship with Macmillan, a huge partnership. And then something we introduced a few years ago, and if you throw enough darts, you have a good idea once in a way. And I'd had the experience of riding around the racecourse on Richard Fahey's horses after the track redevelopment, and got such a buzz alongside Paul Hannigan and Tony Hamilton and all the jockeys that Richard had, and he had a horse for me. And yes, needless to say, I brought up the rear, but it was a great thrill to ride around the track. And I got off and thought that people would raise a lot of money to be able to do that. So we introduced the Macmillan Ride for Your Lives, whereby people could raise money, get selected, get trained up, and raise money for Macmillan for a chance to ride on the last race on Charity Day, which is the Saturday before Royal Ascot. And Belinda won the race one year, and we've had some good winners. Venetia Wrigley, trustee of Racing Welfare, won the race one year. And unfortunately this year, obviously, we had to postpone it, so all the riders for the 2020 renewal will go forward for 2021. But we've had some great times and great races, and I know some people who've ridden in the race have subsequently bought race horses and really got bitten by the bug. So thanks, Belinda. Hi, good to see you. Oh, Derek Thompson's here. It's good. Good. Jessica Layton. Right, okay. Well, I hope that has given... They said not to go on by more than half an hour, so I've done that. I hope that that's given you a feeling and what's wanted, a coffee morning for Racing Welfare. I hope that's been of interest. Of course, do contact me through York Racecourse if you've got any particular questions or thoughts. I'll just finish up by just saying a few words about the Ebor Festival upcoming. It is going to be a very unique, I can't say very unique, it will be a unique Ebor Festival without any crowds here, unfortunately. We had hoped that if Goodwood had gone well, we would have been granted permission for a pilot. We were all set to go for a pilot here for Ebor Festival to welcome crowds. That wasn't to be after last Friday, so we now are set to be behind closed doors for the Welcome to Yorkshire Ebor Festival 2020. Delighted to say ITBV will be here all 4 days, covering 5 races per day. They've upped from 4 to 5, which is great. All 28 races will be on Racing TV. And I hope you can follow the action. It looks like it's going to be a great racing week. We've got Gayeth looking like turning up for our flagship race, the Jumpman International, on the Wednesday. Possibly Love v Enable on the Darley Yorkshire Oaks on the Tuesday. Who knows? Aidan O'Brien has indicated Love, the all-conquering 3-year-old filly, might come. And who knows about Enable? We might have to dust off our last race of Enable in Britain flags that we created last year. And then on the Friday, wow, the race of the week may be the Coolmore Nunthorpe, Batash, load of 2-year-olds coming. Golden Pal might come from America for Wesley Ward. It'd be amazing to see if Batash can beat his 56.16 record that he set last year. And then the Skythorpe, the Sky Bet Ebor on the Saturday to round off the week, which will be the richest flat handicap in Europe again, despite everything. But it will be a very odd experience. I'm sorry people won't be here to enjoy it. I hope people will be able to follow it at home. We'll be doing our best to put on the best behind closed doors meeting we can, and we've got lots of plans with our broadcast partners and on our website to do that. You'll get a race card free from the York Racecourse website, a digital race card, and we're doing lots on social media for it. So I hope that helps, and I hope that's been of interest. I hope I haven't bored people. I hope people are out there. As I say, it's a slightly bizarre experience sitting here talking to an iPad, but I'm hoping that people are out there, and I hope you have a great welcome to Yorkshire Ebor Festival. All the best. Cheerio. Bye.